Sony's promise to PlayStation gamers, Intergalactic and Wolverine get an update, and a Stellar Blade 2 update. All that and more in today's video. Please like the video, subscribe to never miss a gaming update, and share the video to help grow our community. We'll also be going over comment of the day. Be sure to leave a comment as you could be featured in the next video. Now let's talk about this promise from Herman Hulst, and this actually comes from Genki over on X or Twitter, and he says, when it comes to PlayStation single-player titles, Herman Hulst says PlayStation are focused on delivering at least one tentpole title each year. In quotes, Herman Hulst says, on single-player, we are focused on consistently delivering at least one tentpole title per year at the right time in the year, at the right quality level, which players have come to expect from PlayStation Studios. And that is the big commitment. That is the Sony promise for gamers. Now, I know some of you might be looking at this or reading this or hearing this and saying, well, wait, you're giving us one title? You're not going to give us multiple titles? In fairness, they state at least one, so they very well could give you more than one and have actually delivered typically more than one first-party game. But in this case, they're saying at least one first-party tentpole title. And honestly, with all the cancellations that they had and kind of the shift in strategy, it's pretty good to hear that they'll at least do that for us. Obviously, we'll have third-party exclusives mixed in there as well, but for the most part, we're looking at one first-party title at the very least as far as like single-player focused games go. Now, if you look at this year, we've got Death Stranding 2, we've got Ghost of Yotei, and we've also got Marathon coming out as well. Mind you, Marathon is kind of in limbo as far as what's happening there. Ghost of Yotei is a very, very big title for this year, and Death Stranding 2 as well coming out this month is a very, very big title as well. So a lot of cool stuff happening here as far as first party for this year, but as far as the future goes, their commitment is at least one first-party tentpole title, which I think should be good, but hopefully we'll see more than that happen, which we'll actually discuss in the next topic. But as for those who will probably say, hey, they should be able to give us more than one, because, well, we had a year where we got Ghost of Tsushima and we got The Last of Us Part 2. It was a very, very big year for them, right? And then prior to that, I believe we got God of War and we got Spider-Man. So they were delivering consistently two first-party AAA titles that were pretty much blockbusters, right? So some people are hoping, hey, maybe they can still do that. And I think they might still be able to do that. They just have some catching up to do in making sure that they are able to build up their portfolio again in the projects that they have in development. Obviously, this whole live service push and everything that happened there did put a couple wrenches in their entire plan. So things are changing there, but I think that they'll get back on track. So hopefully we see this come to fruition, and I think they'll definitely deliver at least one first-party title. I would definitely expect that to be the case, and this year is already looking very, very fruitful as far as games for the PlayStation Go that are exclusive, and that's counting third-party titles as well, or third-party exclusive deals. Let me know what you think of this promise that Herman Hulst is making to PlayStation gamers. Do you think it's good enough? Do you want more? Let me know down below.
Who kills without cause.
Now, next we're talking about the Wolverine and Intergalactic update. A very interesting update here that comes actually specifically from the PlayStation slideshows. And on these slideshows that they were showing us, there was a single player creative leadership and consistent delivery slide. And basically it had examples of each tentpole title and what year they released. So fiscal year 2022 had God of War Ragnarok, fiscal year 2023 had Marvel's Spider-Man 2, etc., etc. So at the very end of this timeline, it shows Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, and Wolverine as upcoming tentpole titles from the company without a date attached. This implies that the earliest we would see these two games is fiscal year 2026. Prior to that, we see fiscal year 2025, Ghost of Yotei, and Death Stranding 2. But in this case, we see Intergalactic and Wolverine. So some people have taken that to believe that, hey, this is something that's happening in 2026, especially because we see in fiscal year 25, we have two titles that are split. Now, I do think that that is pretty much circumstantial evidence, right? That's assuming that that is the pattern they're going for, which is not necessarily always the case, right? And it may be a situation where Intergalactic and Wolverine may not have solid dates already, right? Like maybe they are expecting to drop Wolverine in 2027 and Intergalactic in 2026, or vice versa, Wolverine in 2026 and Intergalactic in 2027. It's hard to know, right? It's very speculative what could be happening here. In my opinion, based on what we know about each of the projects, it's very hard to say where these games will land. I don't think that both will come in the same year. I really don't. I don't think Intergalactic and Wolverine are dropping in 26. I would be very surprised by that. In fact, I'm really surprised that Saros didn't even make it up here, and now it's me wondering if they just don't consider it a tentpole title. Now, fair enough, Returnal wasn't this big runaway success, but still, I feel like that's a first-party studio, that's a first-party game, that should be something that's celebrated, but I guess they are not looking at it in that aspect as far as this game being a big title for them in the future. So, interesting to see Intergalactic and Wolverine mentioned here, but no Saros. But in my opinion, I think Wolverine being announced 4 years ago with a teaser trailer, it is probably the most likely project that would drop in 26. I know there were some Insomniac leaks that gave us different bits of information. That information could be very much out of date. I mean, there were some departures as well from the studio, which made us question the timeline of Wolverine. But I feel like Wolverine is more likely to be ready than Intergalactic, right? Insomniac works differently. They work at a very different pace, and they're very quick to put games out. So I think that it's more likely we'll see Wolverine than Intergalactic as the next game coming out. Now, mind you, if both these games drop in 2026, this is going to be a massive deal and a big celebration for PlayStation gamers, as this is going to be a full, fruitful year alongside games like Grand Theft Auto 6, right? So there's going to be a ton of choice for us as far as options to play if this does happen in 2026. But again, not holding my breath. I don't think that's the situation. But let me know what you guys think about all this. Do you think that Sony will deliver Intergalactic and Wolverine in the same year, or which years do you think those games will go for in particular? Let me know down below. Now, next we're talking about Stellar Blade and Stellar Blade 2 and Shift Up and what they've had to say. Shift Up announced that Stellar Blade has surpassed 3 million units globally across all platforms. Of these 3 million, 1 million units were sold on PC in just 3 days on the market, as well as the strong praise from Steam users who have left 15.6k reviews, of which 94% are positive. Very important to note that most of these sales actually came from China. And Shift Up CEO Kim Young-tae relayed some interesting statements in an interview with Korean publication This Is Game. The executive talked about Stellar Blade 2, stating that he hopes the sequel could launch in 2027, although it's not at all certain at the moment. Now, he also does reveal some other interesting information as far as what we could see for Stellar Blade 2, so we'll talk about that as well. So he says, we've been fully committed to releasing the PC version following the PlayStation version, so now is the time to do proper research and development. It would be great if it came out in 2027, but there are only 3 years left, so I can only say that we'll do our best. However, I can guarantee that we'll present a great work. He goes on to say, in the early stages of development, we plan to include detailed settings such as the reason the main character's clothes change in the story. However, as production progressed, the cost of producing cutscenes became too much, and eventually, for the sake of efficiency, we had no choice but to reduce cutscenes that supplemented the worldview or character narratives outside of the main plot. That's how we were able to complete the game. It's also because the development of manpower pool or system for narrative-centered games has not yet been fully established in Korea. So that explains a lot as far as why the game was the way it was, especially with the narrative, right? I talked about this in my review that I believe that the last quarter of the game had a lot of dense narrative moments, and unfortunately the prior 75% was just lacking that, and this explains that. He goes on to say, it is true that there were some shortcomings in the narrative in that regard, and if we hastily supplement this part in Stellar Blade now, it may clash with the story that users have accepted so far, so we are cautious. However, if we are given the opportunity to create the next work, I think we will be able to present it with a sufficiently rich narrative. So it sounds like the entire reason why they couldn't go even further as far as the narrative goes and the implementation of the clothes and what the clothes' purpose was and all that stuff was because the resources were just not there for them, right? Of course, they were published by PlayStation, and that helped them a lot. But even then, you have to be kind of proven for a publisher to give you more and more finances to do what you want to do, right? So this being their first AAA game, it was one of those situations where they needed to prove themselves first before they could just get a whole bunch of money, right? So now that they've put this game out and then on PC it's doing super well, I think it's going to create more opportunities for them to execute their vision properly, which makes me believe that Stellar Blade 2 is going to be leaps and bounds beyond Stellar Blade 1. It's going to be better in a lot of ways. They're going to be able to create the vision that they had maybe for the first game plus more in Stellar Blade 2. So very exciting stuff. I really love Stellar Blade 1. I did a review. Sony sent me a copy. We did a review for the PC port. If you haven't seen it yet, consider checking it out. Game is phenomenal, runs beautifully on a PC. Very, very good experience. But that is our Stellar Blade 2 update. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Are you excited for Stellar Blade 2? What are you hoping to see them do with their next entry? Lastly, we're going to be talking about comment of the day, and this comes from @SkullKid8275, who says the PlayStation 6 should probably only come out around 2028, 2029, depending on how long it takes to develop. Now, as far as PS6 goes, I believe with one of the leakers that we had, it actually fits in line for this console to launch in 2027 or late 2027, but maybe Sony does push it out a little further, being that the console generations are lasting much longer, and they may be wanting to wait a little longer to create exactly what they want. But then again, the APU is already set. They've already decided how they're going to do most of these things. So 2027 may not be that unrealistic as far as a timeline for it. I do think that with the way the generations are going and how things have evolved so much, and that we're not seeing these massive jumps anymore, and that everybody will be on these SSDs, these M.2 SSDs, I think that it's going to be more transferable as far as scaling these games, right? So I do think that PS5 and PS6 will both be around for a very long time. I think PS4 will get phased out once PS6 drops, and then people will be moving over to PS5 and PS6 as options. But yeah, I do think this is going to be a generational thing now, especially with how we've seen them treat PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. It's really much treating both bases like they are primary gamers, outside of not dropping, you know, their first party games for the fact that they just will not perform on those consoles. So they have to move forward into the future hardware, right? But yeah, I do think that as far as treating these systems, I think that they're going to treat PS5 as a very important part of their user base. And I think that that'll actually be amplified with this handheld if it does happen, because it will be running PS5 and PS4 games. So that's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think about all that. I don't know if the PS6 will be 2028, 2029. That seems a little too late in the game, considering they allegedly have already planned out the APU for the PS6. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about all of this. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, subscribe, help us get to our 20,000 subscriber milestone by the end of the year, and share the video to help grow our community. I thank all of you for watching. Take care.